What's up, y'all? It's your boy eBay Fight Predictions in the building, and this is your Kelvin Gastelum versus Nassourdine Imavov breakdown, man. I love this fight in the middleweight division, bro. So I wasn't planning on doing a film study breakdown on this, but I ended up doing it anyway. I was gonna actually do one for Jeff Neal versus Shavkat Rakhmonov, but they ended up getting rebooked on a different card because Jeff Neal got hurt. But yeah, so I ended up doing on this one. I had no issue doing it because fucking Nassourdine Imavov is a very fun prospect to watch. And hey, man, if you don't like watching Kelvin Gastelum fights, then I don't know what you like to watch. So I had no issue rewatching some of their fights and going back. So I did a little 3-fight film study for them. I did one where they had a common opponent. I did one where they struggled against a similar opponent. And I did their most recent fight. So yeah, I love this fight, man. I really do. And the theme of on this card, to me, it just feels like you see it with the Dan Ige fight with Damon Jackson, you see it with this fight, is that you got the guy that is a perennial top 10 or top 15 guy, right, that's on some losses, fighting a newcomer that's on a good win streak that looks solid, right, and they're coming to take their spot. So that's really what I see in terms of the theme of this fight is that Kelvin Gastelum's going to have to defend his spot, and Nassourdine Imavov is trying to move up. It's really that simple. There is no beef. There is no this or that. It's just a competitive nature, and it's how the world works. It's how the circle works. It's how the cycle works of the UFC, man. One time you're on top of the world, and another time you're defending your spot in the company, and that's where Kelvin Gastelum's at, in my humble opinion, where, you know, in his last 5, he's 1-4. He's only won 1 fight in his last 5. He at one point fought for an interim title. Now he's ranked, what, number 10, 11, 12, something like that. I don't have the rankings in front of me, but he's not number 4, you know, like he used to be. He's not in the top 5 like he used to be. He is fighting for a spot right now, and he's had to make big changes in his camp. And that's why I like the spot that he's in right now. And I think talking about this fight, it's interesting because Nassourdine Imavov he's a good fighter. I really like him. I do think he has his flaws, but he's a good fighter. I like watching him fight. His movement, his technical striking, the way he mixes in his grappling too, it's really cool. He's called the Russian sniper for a reason. I really like watching him fight. So in terms of actual toughness, I would say in Kelvin's last few, I would say this is probably his 2nd or 3rd toughest fight. I would say Nassourdine Imavov, in my humble opinion, is a tougher fight than Jared Cannonier. Just saying. And I thought Kelvin won that fight. We'll talk about that later, but I know some people might disagree. But this is a tough fight. Nassourdine's big. He's huge. He does have a reach advantage going into this, and there's a lot of things where Kelvin's going to have to overcome to beat Nassourdine. And Nassourdine he's new to 5 rounds. Kelvin isn't, and that's about it when it comes to this matchup. So those are the interesting things going into this. But let's talk about the stats, though. Kelvin Gastelum comes to the record of 17-8, so he's lost a few recently. He's 31 years old, so he's going into his prime. I had a 5'9", and which is 71.5. Nassourdine Imavov is 12-3. He's fighting out of France, age 26, so he's young as fuck. 6'3", and reaches 75, so tall and long compared to Kelvin Gastelum. And those are the things going into this, man. Kelvin Gastelum, he did make that move to fight ready with Henry Cejudo and those guys in Arizona, so I already know he's coming in there with a wrestling game plan. They all know it. If you watch Nassourdine Imavov fights, that's how you got to come at it, man. And if you watch his loss in the only UFC, his only loss in the UFC, then you know what's the game plan. You already know. So yeah, so he's made those changes. He did do a camp with them. They were originally supposed to fight a while back, him and Nassourdine, and then it was switched to Dricus, and then he got hurt, and then yeah, so now he's back. But yeah, so yeah, there's a lot of big changes and a lot of confidence issues for Kelvin going into this. Even though Kelvin's going into his prime, it does feel like some people have said he's somewhat declined, right? He's 31 years old, but people are saying he's declining, and I don't think he's declining. I just think it's a confidence issue. you were on top of the world at one point. Now you're not. You know what I'm saying? So that's going to affect how you fight, how you train, who you are. And I think that's why he had to leave Rafael Cordeiro. Rafael Cordeiro is an amazing coach. I love Rafael Cordeiro. Kings MMA, Benny Dariush, fucking Marvin Vittori, Fabricio Verdum, all those great fighters. RDA used to train there. So it's not like the place is bad, but he just needed a new setting, a new pair of eyes, someone that's going to challenge him to get better, implement more of his grappling, because I feel like that's probably one of Kelvin's games that or I shouldn't say games, his styles that he doesn't really use in the octagon. I mean, sometimes he does, and I feel like he's tried to do it more recently, but he doesn't do it effectively. And I think they're gonna force that into him, that especially in this matchup, this one of the ways I can see him winning is through the wrestling. So yeah, but yeah, that's a big thing. And for Nassourdine Imavov, man, ever since the Phil Haas fight, it's just, there's been a switch in him, and he just has a confidence and a almost just a swagger to him now, where you see him in the octagon after what he did to Edmund, and the way he just approached the Buckley fight, especially in those first 2 rounds, just disregarding him and saying, I want to destroy this guy and this and that. The way how he would approach him when there was an eye poke issue and he just wanted to get at Buckley. He didn't want Buckley to get no rest or whatever. So it is kind of crazy who he's changed into, because he just has a swagger to him. So obviously he's going to go in this fight just cool as a cucumber, and I think he's gonna come for Kelvin's head, man. He really is, and he might try to be one of the first guys to finish him, right, via strike. So that is something interesting to look at. But yeah, so it's just 2 different mentalities going into this fight, right? You got a guy that's not as confident and is making a change, and you got a guy that's sticking with his people and is at a high level of confidence. So yeah, those are things you got to look at. But let's talk about the film study that I did. I did 3 fights. So let's talk about Nassourdine Imavov first. So here's the 3 fights that I watched. Let's talk about his only loss in the UFC. It was against Phil Haas. I thought Phil, he did his thing with the leg kicks, and especially in the first round, how he approached the striking. He gave Nassourdine no space. That's something that Kelvin's going to have to look at. And then he transitioned into wrestling. And he was able to get a lot of good takedowns and stuff like that. And Phil looked good in the first round. Then the second round happened, and he got hurt. He got hurt like a motherfucker. And that's when Nassourdine was one of the guys to expose Phil. But Phil had this hype. If you remember Phil, going into that fight against Nassourdine, he was the favorite. He was the guy. He was the guy that's like, man, this guy he's got next at middleweight. Him and Izzy had some back and forth. You know what I'm saying? He said Izzy blocked him, right? All that, rah. And he had some hype on him, but Nassourdine hurt him, and it looked bad, right? But in retrospect, it's actually a good win for Phil, right? But, he hurt him, and then Phil obviously got the takedown after that. And then Phil got another takedown in that 3rd round, right? And he was like, oh, man, Phil might just dominate. And then Nassourdine hurt him again at the end of that 3rd round, but wasn't able to capitalize on it. And Nassourdine, really what I plagued him in that fight was the time, and he just wasn't able to capitalize on those moments. But there's a lot of things you can learn from that fight. Obviously, forward pressure is something you're going to have to do against Nassourdine. You give him space, you give him time to play. He's a very movement kind of fighter. Like, he loves movement, he loves footwork, he relies on it to set up his shots and stuff like that. And yeah, you do that, and then you have to take him down. You have to. He has good wrestling, don't get it twisted. Nassourdine can wrestle, don't get it twisted, but you have to take him down. He's primarily a striker. I know he's from Dagestan, but you know, he hangs out with Cyril Gane, and he gets trained by Fernando Lopez. You know, he's there to strike. Even though he can wrestle, he's there to strike. So there are those kind of issues where, like, I could see that there can be deficiencies in his wrestling game because he's primarily working on his striking. You know what I'm saying? Like, he wants to be a good striker. You can just see it. He strikes so well. He does. His fundamentals are so good. Like, the way his movement and everything about it is really good. But besides that, we can stop talking about that. Let's talk about the Ian Heinisch fight. In the Ian Heinisch fight, his takedown defense looked way better in this fight. And this is a common opponent him and Kelvin have. And he was able to finish Heinisch in the 2nd round, where Kelvin took him to a decision. And it was a good performance, man. He just, in the knees that he was able to land. And that's something Kelvin's going to have to watch out for. If Kelvin goes for takedowns, man, them knees are coming, bro. And he landed beautiful knees, and it was amazing. And Heinisch couldn't take him down, and when Heinisch couldn't take him down, that's when it was like the show was over. And he was able to take Heinisch down too, which was interesting. And then eventually he ended up touching Heinisch with a beautiful knee, and then hit him with a good jab and hurt him, then finished him. And that was all she wrote. And Heinisch hasn't fought since, which was an amazing performance by Nassourdine. That was the first time I've ever seen Heinisch get treated like that. I've never seen Heinisch get treated like that. I've seen Heinisch lose fights, but never like that. He got completely washed in that fight. It was not competitive at all. Real talk. There weren't any moments you can look at and be like, Heinisch did this, Heinisch did that. No, it was a wrap. And then let's talk about the Joaquin Buckley fight. He looked good. He landed a good front kick. And yeah, I mean, he kind of did his thing. He was able to out-wrestle him a little bit, take him down a few times, do what he got to do. But I thought Buckley had moments in there, especially in that third round. He started landing shots, and he was hitting Nassourdine. And that's something you got to look at for the Kelvin fight, is that, man, when Kelvin puts that pressure on you, how are you going to react? You know what I'm saying? If Buckley can do that to you, especially imagine what Kelvin can do to you. And they're both guys that are tweeners, smaller guys. And yeah, so I thought the Buckley performance, it was a good performance. He showed off his wrestling, showed off a lot of good stuff. His striking looked good. He just showed off a really well-rounded game. But what I saw was that he got tired near the end, and he was getting touched up. And obviously he was rolling with the shots, but he was getting touched up a little bit near the end. And yeah, I thought Buckley gave a good account of himself. And then right after that, Buckley gets finished. So put that into perspective, right? Nassourdine could have finished him, but fucking Chris Curtis could. And I think Chris Curtis isn't that guy. So, it puts into perspective, right? So yeah, it was a good performance, but other people have done way better to Buckley. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. But hey, that's what he's got, and now he's fighting Kelvin Gastelum. And Kelvin Gastelum, man, you can say whatever you want, but the guy is one of the toughest dudes in the division. He has a good skill set, good hands, and good wrestling. And the fights that I looked at a fight where I felt like he fought someone really similar to Nassourdine, and I felt like even better than Nassourdine Imavov, if I'm being quite honest. It's Israel Adesanya, right? He fought Adesanya in the interim title fight, probably the most prime and ready version of Kelvin Gastelum I've ever seen. He hurt Adesanya in the first round, right? He had Adesanya wobble. This is a former champion I'm talking about. This isn't no scrub, right? He fucking hurt him in that first round. Then obviously Israel got it back. He got him with that spinning back elbow, and then he knocked him down. And obviously he defended some takedowns too in that fight, in that round especially. In the third round, Kelvin was able to take him down. Man, he took him down. And then in that fourth round, man, it was fucking legendary. That fourth round, Kelvin landed that fucking head kick, and I was like, let's go, Kelvin, finish him. And Kelvin, he didn't do what Alex Pereira did. He didn't go for the finish. He went for a takedown. The dumbest moment. Man, if he wouldn't have went for that takedown, bro, how this world would have changed. Oh, my fucking God. We wouldn't be in the position we're in right now, bro. Oh, man. But he went for that takedown, and that's all she wrote after that. Adesanya, he was able to rest. He used that momentum switch, and he was able to knock out Kelvin for like 3 times in that fifth round. It was fucking crazy. It was an insane fight. It's one of the best fights. Obviously, there was that awesome little wrestling scramble where Izzy gets the guillotine and then Kelvin rolls out. Then Izzy goes for the triangle and he rolls out, and they're just swinging and banging and everyone's clapping. It was one of the greatest fights of all time, bro. It really is a great fight. Like I remember at one point when I was doing like Kelvin and Izzy film studies, I felt like I watched it too much. So I took a long time of not watching that fight. So I think it was maybe 6 months to a year where I haven't seen that fight. And I saw it again, and I was like, wow, this was a phenomenal fight. I forgot how good it was. So yeah. But let's talk about Kelvin's last win, and that was Ian Heinisch. And it's a very competitive fight, actually. And they common opponents to Kelvin and Nassourdine. But the way Kelvin fought him, he out-wrestled him, straight up. Nassourdine didn't do that. And that's how Kelvin beat Ian Heinisch. He out-wrestled him. Heinisch did have some success in the beginning, right? He had that takedown, and then he had the Kimura attempt, which it was good for him, right? And hey, Heinisch if he fought a different fight, maybe he would have won it. Like, you put that into perspective, because every takedown he attempted, he got. You know what I'm saying? But it was just the first one, Kelvin was able to get out, and then he went for another one near the end, and it was just a little too late. But Heinisch just made the wrong decisions in this fight the whole entire time, and Kelvin just capitalized. He just took him down a whole bunch, dominated him in the wrestling, got big takedowns, and was able to win that decision pretty much like 30-27 basically. And he kind of dominated, but it was competitive though, to Heinisch's credit, and that's the thing. And that's what gives me hope that Kelvin can kind of win this fight against Nassourdine, is the wrestling. You look at these big takedowns that he was able to get at Heinisch. Why can't he do it against Nassourdine? Phil was able to do it against Nassourdine. Why can't Kelvin, right? That's my perspective on it. And then Kelvin fought Cannonier, and I thought Kelvin won this, and I stand by it. It was a close fight, don't get it twisted, but I thought he won. Kelvin, I thought he won the first 2 rounds. I thought he landed the better shots. He fucking, the 1-2 down the pipe was clean, and he was hurting Jared Cannonier. And I think Jared Cannonier's been getting away with these dumb decisions. First it's Sean Strickland, then it was Kelvin Gastelum. I'm tired of Cannonier, bro. I'm really tired, and I just have a strong disliking right now for him. I used to not have an issue with him, but it's like, bro, this guy's getting away with these weird decisions that he should probably be losing, and he's fighting for titles, and he's fighting for top guys, and he's just not entertaining. But he did drop Kelvin. I will give him that. He dropped him twice in the 3rd and the 4th. And then I thought Kelvin won the 5th. He got the takedown. He landed the better shots in the 5th round. I just thought Kelvin won that fight, and it is what it is. I stand by what I feel. It was a good scrap. It was competitive. It's obviously a damage-based sport, but the damaging shots in 1s, 2, and 5 were all to Kelvin, and Kelvin got the takedown in the 5th round. So if that means anything, I think he should win. But yeah, so that's where Kelvin's at, right? So he had a really competitive fight with Cannonier, which I thought he won, and then he got outclassed by Whitaker, right? And he's coming off a win over Heinisch, right? So that's where he's at. He just doesn't seem like he's regressed. I didn't see a bad version of him against Cannonier, so I don't think Kelvin is trash, right? So when he's fighting Imavov, I just don't see this perspective where people are like, Imavov's gonna destroy him. He's gonna wreck Kelvin. Da 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 da. And I just don't see it. No disrespect to Nassourdine, but I just don't. I don't think Kelvin can't win this fight. I really don't. If Kelvin can use his footwork, be bouncy, don't let Nassourdine control the space, and if he can get good takedowns and good control time, he can win this fight. This guy has never fought 5 rounds. He looked like he was getting tired in the Buckley fight. This is a 5-round fight. This is an experienced fighter in Kelvin Gastelum, a veteran, and he's been there, done that. Nassourdine is still figuring it out. I think Kelvin can fucking win this fight. And I'm rocking with Kelvin by decision. I think Kelvin can fucking win, and I think a lot of you guys must have fucking forgot. Alright, this guy's fought for fucking titles before. Alright, Nassourdine's never even looked at an interim title. Alright? He's fought for belts. He's beat top guys. He knocked out Michael Bisping like he was a nobody. Okay? Kelvin Gastelum will prove a lot of people wrong. I truly believe I could be wrong and fall fucking flat on my face. But motherfucking Kelvin Gastelum is gonna show Nassourdine Imavov how we do it in America. Alright? That dude's fucking ashamed to be from Dagestan. Okay, that's one. Alright, wanna be a little Frenchy boy, huh? Wanna be a French boy, right? Huh? Wanna be like Cyril Gaunt? You're not. Alright, and you get taught how to wrestle. Alright, you're Phil Haas's son. Okay, let's get it straight. And we fucking run this shit at 185. KG Gang is back. We're here to take over. But hope you guys enjoyed that little video. Love y'all and goodbye. I'm rocking with Kelvin Gastelum by decision 48-47. Go follow me on my Twitter and my Instagram. Your boy eBay Fight Predictions is out of here. Love y'all and goodbye. Hope you guys enjoyed this little breakdown.
What things have you added in your game since you've moved here?
Well, this is a big wrestling town. This is a big wrestling community. So we've definitely worked on my wrestling, you know, and trying to make, going back to my roots and really cultivating it with my striking and putting it all together. And I feel like my game is the best that it's ever been because of that.